One Monday morning, Marie Nardotti was on her way to the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Taking a key, she locked the door to her house and walked to her car. Selecting a key from her key ring, she unlocked the driver's door and climbed in. Strapping the safety belt on, she put the key into the ignition and turned the key. An explosion of white gas erupted into Marie's face, blinding her. She inhaled deeply out of reflex and was unconscious within seconds. Marie woke to find herself lying on a tile floor in a brightly lit room. The room was exceptionally bright due to the fact that the walls were mirrored, from floor to ceiling. Not only did this cause to brighten the room, it also made it look endless. She was wearing a pair of plastic pants. The pants looked inflated to Marie and she was unable to close her legs. There was some kind of a thickness between her legs, indicating to her that she was wearing something else under the plastic pants. Pulling the elastic waistband away from her, she gazed down to see what was under the plastic pants. She was shocked to discover that someone had put a thick diaper on her. Noticing a plastic ID bracelet strapped around her right ankle, Marie could see that her name was printed on the bracelet. It read, ABDL Nardotti. Covering herself with her arms, she got up from the floor and looked around the room. Marie gazed at her reflection in the wall mirror. Her reflection was everywhere and it was endless. Her shoulder-length black hair was pulled up in a ponytail and tied with a pink bow. Pulling on the plastic pants, Marie thought she looked ridiculous dressed in them. As she moved about the room trying to measure it, her bladder felt very full and was ready to burst. She knew that she had to use the toilet soon. Crying out, Marie said, "What is going on? Who did this to me?" Suddenly, a stern female voice bellowed from the walls. "You are here to become a baby again." Marie's mouth dropped open. Did somebody want to turn her into a baby again? "No," cried out Marie, "you can't make me a baby again." She waited for a response, but none came. Marie continued to wait for a response. Seconds turned into minutes, and minutes turned into an hour. By then, Marie was starting to dance around the room. Her bladder was so full, it was ready to burst. "Listen," she said, "I need to use the ladies' room." Still, there was no answer. Again she said, almost a yell, "I need to use the ladies' room real bad." Still, no response, but a mirror wall panel slid silently open and a woman dressed in a starched white nurse's uniform entered the room. The nurse walked over to where Marie stood, hopping from one foot to the other. "Yes?" questioned the nurse. Squeezing her legs together, Marie blurted out, "Please, I need to go to the ladies' room." Smiling, the nurse replied, "You mean that you have to go potty?" "Yes," Marie screamed. Then she was able to contain herself as she added, "Yes, please. I have to go potty. Please. You may call me Nursey Karen." The nurse stated. "Fine," Marie said. "Now can you take me to the ladies' room?" Karen gave her a look and Marie quickly said, "I need to go potty." Karen then said, "You are in diapers and you should use them. But this time I will take you potty." Taking her over to one of the mirrored walls, Karen simply said, "Open." A small panel opened, revealing a baby's potty chair. Pointing her finger at the potty chair, Marie exclaimed, "I am not sitting on that." "Then use your diaper," said Karen flatly. Marie had to pee so bad that she decided to use the baby potty chair. She pushed away Karen when tried to help lower Marie's plastic pants. Marie received a slap to her hand. Karen said that she will remove Marie's plastic pants and unpin her diapers. When that task was done, Marie ran over to the potty chair and sat on the tiny seat. She just made it, for as soon as she sat, Marie peed. As she sat on the potty chair, Marie felt so foolish with her knees up under her chin. Finally the ordeal was over. She started to rise only to be pushed back down onto the potty chair's seat. "I do not think you are done yet. Stay there until Nursey so," ordered Karen. I am done, stated Marie. Karen looked down at Marie sitting there and folded her arms. Marie, all of a sudden, feeling very young, quickly quieted herself. She remained sitting on the seat until Karen said she could get up. Now let us get you diapered, said Karen. Tears started to run down Marie's cheeks as she started to pull up the plastic pants. Karen then said, "No, Nursey will diaper you." Laying Marie on the floor, Karen re-diapered her. Marie started to say that she did not need diapers, but Karen ignored her. Laying on her stomach, Karen took her temperature. Marie felt so childish having her temperature taken this way. Marie let out a cry. "What are you doing to me? I do not need that." "Hush," replied Karen, "or Nursey spank baby." Marie bit her bottom lip as Karen continued. With that done, Marie found herself wearing 3 thick diapers, covered by plastic pants again. Then Marie left the room. The suppository started working about 15 minutes later. Marie could feel rumbling in her stomach. Marie started to get cramps. Close to 45 minutes had passed and the cramps were more severe. Marie strained, trying not to humiliate herself by messing herself. Finally, she cried out, "Please, I have to use the ladies' room. Please." There was no response. Marie thought for a second and remembered something. "Please, I have to go potty. I will even use the potty chair. Please." Again, no response. Then it happened, the suppositories erupted and Marie went in her diapers. She just stood there, in shock. She was unable to stop the flood. Then it was over and Marie crumpled to the floor in tears. She could not stop crying. Messing herself like a baby. It was so embarrassing. Marie was still on the floor crying as the mirrored panel slid silently open and Karen came in pushing a cart. "Nursey gonna check baby's ID," announced Karen. Karen lifted Marie's bottom up and laid a large diaper pad under her. Karen slowly pulled the plastic pants down Marie's legs, revealing her soggy diapers. Carefully, Karen unpinned the sides of the diaper and pulled it off her. Gently, Karen wiped Marie's with baby wipes and powdered her. Lifting her bottom up, Karen laid 3 thick diapers under her. Next came the sweaty hot plastic pants to cover the bulky diapers. Tears running down her cheeks, Marie sobbed. "Why are you doing this to me?" Karen laid Marie's head on her lap. Stroking her hair and giving Marie an adult-sized baby's pacifier, Karen cooed. "Because you are just a baby." Marie was so exhausted from her experience, she fell asleep on Karen's lap. She woke about a half hour later, still on Karen's lap and sucking the pacifier. She spat the pacifier out, lifting her head up and mumbling to herself, "I thought this was a terrible dream." Smiling, Karen cooed, "No, sweetie. Now baby must be hungry." Karen shoved a baby bottle into Marie's mouth. "I am not removing it, baby, until you finished at least half of it." Resigned to her fate, Marie started sucking on the bottle. The liquid was warm and tasted sweet. The flavor tasted familiar. Then she remembered. It was Simulac, the baby formula that she used to feed her son years ago. She continued sucking on the bottle until it was almost gone. Marie felt bloated. To her surprise, Karen lifted her up and laid her head over her shoulder. Using her hand, Karen started patting the middle of Marie's back. She was attempting to burp Marie. Before Marie could object, she let out a loud burp. Karen stood up and cooed to Marie. "Time for your first baby lesson." Pointing her finger at Marie, she continued. "Baby better listen and do what told to her." Then she exited through the mirrored panel. The stern female voice once again bellowed. "You are a baby, and will be treated like a baby." The voice seemed to come from all around Marie. Marie stood and looked around. Again, the voice bellowed. "Baby's cruel. If you walk or stand you will be punished." Marie just stood there. Suddenly, a bolt of electricity shot up through the floor, through her feet and up her legs. She fell onto the floor, the nerves in her legs shaking. Because her bladder was full again, Marie lost control and soaked her diaper. She could feel the dampness on her skin as she sat on the floor. Remember, the voice continued to bellow, baby's cruel. You will be punished if you stand or walk. Sobbing, 46-year-old Marie cried. Who is doing this? I am not a baby, I am a grown woman. I am a wife and a mother. The voice just laughed at Marie's statement. Marie stood up. Suddenly, a bolt of electricity shot up through the floor, through her feet, and up her legs. She fell to the floor, the nerves in her legs shaking. Marie realized that she was being punished for standing. About 15 minutes later, a panel slid open and two women, dressed as nurses, entered. One of the nurses pushed a cart, while the other one carried a long metal rod. She was holding a cattle prod. She walked over to where Marie sat. Without saying a word, one of the nurses pushed Marie down to a laying position. Marie started to struggle, but a touch of the metal rod shooting electricity stopped her. The nurse pulled Marie over her knee and gave her a spanking, humiliating her into submission. Pulling off the damp plastic pants, the nurse quickly unpinned the diapers and removed them. Then she rolled Marie over onto her stomach. The nurse cleaned her using baby wipes. Then she rubbed baby oil and baby powder all over. Marie was too upset to resist. Taking 3 thick, white clothes, the nurse slid them under Marie's bottom. Taking safety pins, the nurse attached the ends together. The nurse had put Marie into clean diapers. To help humiliate Marie more, the nurse pulled a pair of plastic pants up and covered the diapers. Baby Marie can do her wet ties and messes in her didies now, cooed the nurse. Like Karen, the nurse took the cart and disappeared through the mirrored panel. Marie sat next to one of the walls and tried to think back on what had happened to her. She remembered getting up, showering, dressing and having a cup of coffee for breakfast. Then locking the door to her house, getting into her car. And then all of that gas and blacking out. After that, she remembered segments, like a dream you can almost remember. She remembered 2 women, dressed like nurses, taking her to a car that was parked in her driveway. She half walked, half carried by the nurses to the waiting sedan. Being sat in the back seat. One of the women sitting in the back with her and securing the seat belt around her. The sedan moving down the street, away from Marie's house. The nurse inserting her thumb into her mouth. Riding for a long time while lying against the nurse's shoulder, half awake, sucking on her thumb. Then arriving at a house, surrounded by a tall, brick wall, an iron gate. The drive up the driveway and stopping in front of a house. Laying on a hospital gurney and being covered with a sheet. Trying to struggle slightly, but having no strength left and the nurse easily pushing her back down. Having one of the nurses inserted the pacifier into her mouth, saying, "There, baby, that will help soothe you." She still felt the results of the gas, and was too weak to resist. Being pushed into the house and down a long white corridor to a white vacant room. Then laid on a table and just laying there limp. She remembered starting to sob when they had done this. The more she thought, a bit more she remembered, though it was cloudy. Having her temperature taken. Having a white ointment smeared over her. It felt cool to her skin. Then a heavy dose of baby powder being applied. Then having a nurse lifted her bottom up off the table and laying 3 cloth-like items under her. Then she was laid on it. The nurse pulled the cloth up and pinned the ends together. They had put her into an adult-sized diaper. Marie remembered crying out in a weak voice. "Don't do this to me." She whimpering. "I am not a baby." A nurse cooing to her. "Hush now, baby." Having all of her makeup washed off and her nails clipped short. The last thing she remembered was waking up in the mirrored room, diapered. Approximately half hour after the nurses left, the harsh female voice returned. It bellowed. "You are a baby, and you will behave like a baby. It continued. Babies wet their diapers. When you are wet, you will cry. When you are hungry, you will also cry. The stern voice continued speaking. For hours the voice lingered on. Marie could slowly feel herself being hypnotized by the suggestions. You are a baby, and you will behave like a baby. Babies wet their diapers. When you are wet, you will cry. When you are hungry, you will also cry. This statement was repeated for the next hour. The following hour, another statement kept repeating. You want to be a baby again. You want someone to baby you again. You want to wear diapers again. You need to wear diapers again. You do not want to be potty trained anymore. Suddenly the once stern voice became very soft and cooed very gently. You want to suck your thumb again. You want to be fed baby food again. You want to drink baby formula again. You want to drink from a baby bottle again. You feel safe in your playpen or the arms of a grown-up. You want to be a baby again. You want to have someone feed you, dress you, and take care of you like a baby. You are a baby again. By the end of the 4th hour of this training, the mirror panel opened, and in walked Karen. She found Marie curled up, sucking her thumb, crying. Walking over to her, Karen knelt and held out her arms. Looking up through tear-filled eyes, Marie lunged for Karen, hugging her, sobbing. Marie cried to her. Me no want to be baby. Me grown up. Karen smiled. Marie was regressing nicely. Feeling her diaper, Karen found that she had wet herself. As a matter of fact, she was soaked. Marie had now regressed to speaking to baby talk. Stroking Marie's hair, Karen cooed. Baby has enough baby learning for today. Taking a pacifier out of her pocket and inserting it into Marie's mouth, she continued. Nursey take baby and clean her ups and then fed baby. Now come along. Karen walked through the mirror panel door with Marie crawling behind. Marie learned that to walk she would be punished. She had to crawl, which she did. Marie crawled behind Karen on a soft carpet. The walls were painted a light beige. They entered a room that had about 10 adult-size baby changing tables. Lifting Marie under her arms, Karen laid her down on one of the padded pads on the table. Looking around the room, Marie noticed that nursery rhyme figures adorned the room. Above her were little Bo Peep and her sheep. The room was painted light pink and was very restful. Very gently, Karen removed the damp plastic pants and then unpinned the diapers. Lifting Marie's bottom up, Karen pulled the wet diaper away and deposited it into the diaper pail next to the changing table. Turning Marie over onto her stomach, Karen decided to take her temperature. Marie let out a little yipe and a cry. Then it was over. Opening the table's cabinet doors, Karen removed diapers, plastic pants, powder, lotion, and diapering. Being a very good pediatrician nurse, Karen had the diapering procedure down pat. Taking the diaper in, she rubbed it in. She did the same with the baby lotion. Finally she sprinkled the powder all over Marie, making her smell baby sweet. Lifting Marie's bottom off the mat, she slid 3 thick diapers under her. Karen pulled the cloth up and using large baby safety pins, secured the ends together, snugly. Shaking the plastic pants, Karen pulled them up Marie's legs and covered the bulky diapers. The diapers were so thick between her legs, Marie was unable to close them. After fixing the bow in Marie's ponytail and giving her a pacifier, Karen helped her off of the changing table. Once more following Karen, Marie was led into the dining room. It was like going into a very nice restaurant. All of the tables were round with white linen tablecloths and in the center flowers. But Marie noticed something else at every table. There were setting for 8 people, and every other chair was a high chair. Karen took her charge over to one of the tables and sat her in a high chair. The seat was wide enough for an adult to sit in. She was secured in it when Karen attached the feeding tray in place. There were 2 other babies already there in their high chair. Both were dressed in diapers and plastic pants, topless and a large plastic bib tied around their necks. One of the baby women had her blonde hair tied up in loose pigtails while the other had her hair pulled up in the center and tied with a bow. She had the Pebbles Flintstone look. Marie was surprised to find the baby woman with the bow was someone she knew. Her name was Suzanne Humphreys. Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. Dr. Humphreys, and she worked at the same hospital for a few years before Marie transferred to another one. Now Suzanne was on the other side of the table, being spoon-fed baby food. The other woman, who Marie found out that her name was Sharon Fiesta, and whose nurse called her Baby Sherry, was taller than her nurse. She too sat there as her nurse spoon-fed her baby food. How can these grown women just sit there so docile? Thought Marie. A waitress came over and placed a bowl of pabulum on Marie's tray. Karen picked up a tiny spoon and began feeding her. Marie tried to avoid being fed, only to have the sticky substance messing her face. Marie cried out. No, me do this. Me fed me. Karen ignored Marie's cries and continued feeding her. She was able to get about half the pabulum into Marie's mouth and the other half around her mouth. As the baby women were being fed, another nurse came with her charge, Robin Miller. Robin was seated between Marie and Suzanne. While the baby women were being fed, Sharon's bottom lip began to quiver and she burst into tears. "What is the matter, Baby Sherry?" asked her nurse. "Did baby go pee-pee in her didies?" Sharon only began to cry louder at this statement. The nurse felt her diapers and said that she was indeed wet, very wet. She removed the feeding tray and led Sharon over to the changing table in the other room. They returned about 5 minutes later with Sharon waddling behind her nurse. Suzanne also started crying. Her nurse allowed her to feed herself. But soon, Suzanne realized that she was just like a baby. She had made a mess of trying to feed herself. Pabulum was all over her face and bib. Her nurse took the baby spoon and started feeding Suzanne once more. Marie could not believe that a grown woman like Suzanne was unable to feed herself. Was she this way too? The nurses were able to feed their charges and themselves, finishing at the same time. During dinner, the nurses spoke to each other and baby talked to their charges. Robin's nurse said, "Ladies, after dinner, do you want to take the babies to the playroom?" Karen replied, "No, I don't think so. Baby Marie had a very busy day. I want to give her her bath and get her ready for bed." Marie shook her head, crying, No. Me take baby. Me no need help. Me am a big girl." The nurses smiled at Marie's regressed baby talk. Karen removed the feeding tray and helped Marie down. She had her crawl, following out of the dining area and down the hallway. She took Marie to an elevator. Using a series of numbers on a wall pad, Karen placed her hand on a white screen and the elevator doors opened. Marie crawled in, followed by Karen. Again, Karen used a series of numbers on the wall and then placed the palm of her hand on a screen and the elevator doors closed. Looking at Marie, Karen cooed. "See what we big girls asked to do just to get the elevator. We do this so you babies cannot accidentally get on the elevator by yourselves without adult supervision." Marie started to sweat. From the looks of the controls, it was going to be very hard to use the elevator. Maybe she could escape using the emergency exit stairwell. Marie could feel the elevator ascend. They stopped on the 9th floor. "Please nursey, please change baby," she wailed. Chrissy started to cry harder, thinking that she might get such an infantile rash. At first, she did not know where she was. Then it accords to her where and what had happened to her. Her husband, John, had taken her to a terrible place that was going to make her into a baby again. She started to squirm in her incubator. There was a cold dampness around her waist. She had wet herself during her nap. Tears developed and started running down her cheeks. Janice did not know why she was so susceptible to crying. She never behaved like this. Janice was a strong woman, But now the least little thing caused her to cry. It was not just tears, but she was wailing like a baby. She wanted her diapers changed now. Through her tears and wailing, Janice could see the nurse speaking into an intercom. She was too far away to hear what she was saying, but she had the feeling the nurse was talking about her. A few minutes later, Janice saw John come through the doors. He was dressed in green scrubs, just like the nurses. He and a nurse came over to her incubator. She stopped her wailing, laid there sniffling. "Your daddy's here to learn how to take care of a big baby like you," cooed the nurse. Janice hated being talked down to. Tears started flowing down her cheeks again. She used to be John's mommy, now he was her daddy and she did not like it. The nurse unwrapped the blanket. Then she began telling him how to remove her baby clothes. John started unpinning her diaper pins and she began hitting him with her mitten fists. "She's having a tantrum," stated the nurse. "What do you do?" John looked at her. "You spank her," replied the nurse. John turned Janice onto her stomach and began spanking her. This was so embarrassing to her. John never spanked Janice. When he stopped, John said to her, "Behave or else Daddy's going to spank you again." Janice lay there as he removed the wet diapers. He cleaned her up, put diaperine on her along with the baby powder. Once more she was encased in diapers and plastic pants, this time she was diapered by her husband. Once she was wrapped up in her soft pink blanket, John bottle-fed her. This process continued for several days. Every day John would come and learn to take care of Janice. Every day that John saw his wife, she seemed to regress. It was easier for her to have wet diapers, suck on her bottle, and cry. She even smiled and drooled when she saw John. Finally, on the 7th day, Janice was released from the nursery and taken to a nursery room. Janice, dressed only in diapers and plastic pants, crawled while John and a nurse slowly walked next to her. In her room, she shared it with 3 other baby women. In the room were 4 cribs, 4 dressers, and a changing table. The nurse lifted Janice up and laid her on the changing table. Taking a Velcro strap, she strapped Janice down around the waist. Janice laid there sucking her thumb. The nurse removed an adult-size baby dress from the closet. It was pink and white check, with a white Peter Pan collar and white puffed sleeves. The nurse helped John dress Janice. The hem of the dress barely passed her diapers. Pink panties with ruffled lace across the seat covered the plastic pants. White anklets along with white patent Mary Ann's shoes covered Janice's feet. Since Janice's hair was so short, the nurse pulled the center of her hair up, clipping it with a large pink, plastic baby bow. "She looks adorable," exclaimed the nurse. Looking in the mirror, Janice had to admit to herself that she did look cute. Lifting her off the table, they had her crawl out of the room, down the corridor to the elevator. Using the coded keypad, the doors opened. They entered the elevator, pressing the first floor button. Janice could feel the elevator descend and stop at the first floor. The trio went through the playroom and outside. They were not worried about Janice scraping her knees. The exit let out onto the grass. Other baby women were out in the playground, playing. Janice, with her binky in her mouth, crawled over to the sandbox. "Janny," cooed John, "Daddy got a surprise for his baby." Janice looked up at her daddy. Drool shone on her chin. She grinned, she liked it when John gave her surprises. Walking over to her was another girl. It was Janice's niece, Denise, the little girl she used to babysit. Her gladness turned to fear. "Doesn't she look sweet?" cooed Denise as she tickled Janice under her chin. Janice started to cry. Standing up, she tried to run away, but due to the shots she received every day, her leg muscles were weak. She found that she could not run, only wobble like a baby just learning to walk. Janice managed to wobble away only about 3 feet before she fell backward onto her diapered bottom. She began to wail, bringing her fists up to her face while kicking her feet. Denise came over to her, kneeling next to her. Cradling her head and rocking her aunt, Denise talked softly to her. "No worry baby Janny, Auntie Dee Dee's here to take care of baby." Janice started to simmer down a little until she heard what Denise had to say next. "When baby goes home next week, Auntie Dee Dee going to take care of baby while daddy's at work. Won't that be fun?" Janice looked at her niece in horror. "I am going to be your babysitter. Uncle John can't leave a baby alone." That's when Janice made a grave mistake. She spoke like an adult. "I can take care of myself," she declared. Denise quickly pulled her infantile aunt over her knee. The nurse came over and handed Denise a wooden paddle. Using the paddle, Denise spanked Janice's diapered bottom at least 20 times before stopping. Janice was crying, waving her arms and kicking her legs, begging her niece to stop her spanking. Sitting her on the grass, Denise pointing her finger at Janice said, "Babies do not talk like big girls. Baby Janny, you will speak like the baby you are." Rubbing her sore bottom, Janice said through her tears, "Me am a big girl. Me no need no sitter." "Yes you are," exclaimed Denise. "But you still need a babysitter." Denise had her aunt crawl back to the sandbox. For the next hour, while John and the nurse watched, Denise played with her babified aunt. She took her aunt over to the baby-sized sliding board. Helping her climb the little ladder, Denise sat her down at the top. Then she slid down into Denise's waiting arms. It was so cute, thought the nurse, seeing Denise who came no higher than Janice's chest, babying the full-grown woman. Denise continued playing with her aunt. After the sliding board, she took Janice over to the baby swings. Sitting her in the box-like seat, Denise pulled the bar down across Janice's lap, securing her in. When she got tired of this, Denise took Janice back to the sandbox. Removing her Mary Ains and socks, she sat Janice in the sand. Janice followed her niece like a little one. Denise held her aunt's wrist. She did not want to be spanked again, especially by someone more than half her age. It was so embarrassing. Denise laid Janice down in the grass. Before Janice knew it, Denise had removed her baby dress, so all that she was wearing was her plastic pants that covered her bulky diapers and a t-shirt. She grabbed for the baby dress to cover herself up. Even though she was treated like a baby, she was very embarrassed about being seen dressed only in diapers. Denise slapped Janice's hand away. "No touch, baby Janny," she scolded. "It is warm out, that's why Auntie Dee Dee took baby's dress off." Janice hated being dressed only in the diapers and t-shirt, even though there were other baby women wearing only diapers. The muscle relaxants were still being given to her, so Janice crawled, trying desperately to hide behind her niece. As she hid behind Denise, Janice felt herself wetting her diaper. She had no control of her bladder any longer and would wet herself. Denise looked down at her infantile aunt and cooed. "Did baby go pee-pee in her didies?" Janice could not believe what was happening to her. Michelle laid her on her back. Taking a diaper pad from her diaper bag, put it under her. John and the nurse watched as Denise continued her treatment on her aunt. Slowly, Denise pulled the damp plastic pants down Janice's legs and laid them on the grass. After removing the diaper pin on one side of the diaper, she started unpinning the other one. Janice grabbed the front of the cloth, holding it tight in her hands. Slapping Janice's hands away, Denise said, "Babykins, let Auntie change your wet didies." Janice's hands did not move. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she shook her head. Denise pulled and finally got the cloth away from her naughty aunt. In seconds, Janice laid out in the open. It was so embarrassing. Denise giggled as she pointed at Janice, trying in vain to cover herself up. "Isn't that cute?" she cooed. "She's trying to cover herself like she was a big girl and not a baby." Crying, Janice said, "I am a big girl, I mean an adult." This display of adulthood angered the nurse. She quickly knelt next to Janice, rolled her onto her stomach, and just using her bare hand, spanked Janice. In seconds and she found herself kicking her legs, begging like a child that she would be good. After the spanking, the nurse told Denise to resume with the diapering. This time, Denise put on her aunt 4 thick cloth diapers. Out of the building came a nurse ringing a handheld bell. It's lunchtime. Denise, with John, prodded Janice into the building and to the dining room. Janice crawled down the carpeted hallway. A few times, leaning up against the wall, she tried to stand. But like most babies just learning to walk, Janice only managed to walk a few steps before stumbling backward, falling on her diapered bottom. She was tired of crawling around like a baby and wanted to walk again. Thanks to the relaxant, this was an impossibility. She would be crawling like a baby as long as John wanted her to. John watched his infantile wife crawl down the hall. Thinking that just a week ago, she was a domineering woman, now she was a helpless baby. He liked it. Now she would be treated like a baby like she treated him. Revenge was so sweet. In the dining room, every other chair was a high chair. Denise sat Janice in a high chair, securing the feeding tray in place. After tying a plastic bib on her babified aunt, Denise took the chair next to her. Janice in her high chair sat between John and Denise. John allowed Denise to take care of Janice. When dinner came, a large baby tribal was placed on her feeding tray. Janice looked down at the mush. There was creamed chicken, strained peas, applesauce, and strained prunes. This was the first meal Janice had in a week. She was fed only baby bottles of warm formula. Janice thought she would not have a drink, but the thought was quickly wiped away when a nurse placed a large nipple baby bottle of Similac on the tray. Picking up the tiny baby spoon, Janice dipped it into the chicken mush. "No," said Denise harshly, slapping Janice's hand. "Auntie Dee Dee feeds baby. Baby is much too young to be able to feed herself." Janice sat in the high chair as Denise spoon-fed her. Tears began to roll down her cheeks again, and she was feeling so babyish, being fed. Not only was she being fed, but spoon-fed. Every once in a while, Denise would stick the nipple of the baby bottle into Janice's mouth and tell her to drink. The formula still tasted like sour milk, but Janice was getting used to it. After all, that's all she had for the past week. Once the bowl was empty, Denise had a hard time feeding the strained prunes to Janice. Denise removed the feeding tray. Taking her aunt from the high chair, she sat Janice on her lap. Janice felt so foolish sitting there. Janice was at least a head taller than Denise. Bending her back, Denise took the baby bottle and started bottle feeding her the rest of the bottle. Sucking on the nipple, Janice managed to finish off the awful baby formula. As she drank it, so of the formula would dribble out the corner of her mouth, which Denise wiped away with a cloth. Finishing the bottle, Denise took a cloth, laid it over her shoulder. Then she laid Janice's head over her clothed shoulder, holding the back of her head. Denise began patting her back hard. Janice started crying again. Her niece was burping her. John watched as Denise burped Janice. He was happy about the results of the treatment. It was worth the money spent. Never again would he be the object of his wife's abusive nature. Never again would he be treated like a baby. He could not wait to get Janice home. Their bedroom was now his bedroom. He had made the smallest bedroom in their house her room, a nursery. There was now a hospital baby crib in there. The crib could fit a grown woman easily. There was a locking lid to it too. He had bought a triple dresser as a changing table for her. John had attached a plastic pad across the top. In the center he attached a Velcro strap so when he or a babysitter was changing her, she could be strapped down and could not fall off. Above the changing table was a shelf filled with baby powder, baby lotion, diaperin, Vaseline, even a rectal monitor. Everything a baby's body would need for a diaper change. The drawers were filled with cloth diapers, plastic pants, t-shirts, baby-style tops, and disposable diapers. A pink diaper pail stood next to the dresser. It had written on it, "Janny's diaper pail." Sitting her aunt on the carpet, Denise cooed. "Time for baby Janny nappy-poo." Janice shook her head. Not wanting to be punished, she regressed to baby talk. "No," she cried. Janny no want to take nap. Janny want to play. No, replied Denise. Baby Janny gonna take nap. Denise, John, and the nurse followed as Janice crawled down the hallway to the elevators. Taking the elevator to her floor, she went down the hall to her nursery room. Lifting her aunt onto the changing table, Denise pulled out a pair of Dr. Denton pajamas, complete with feet. Lifting her legs up, she put the pajamas under her. Then, Denise took one leg at a time, inserting them into the legs of the pajamas, finally pulling them up over the diapers and putting her arms into the sleeves. Helping her off the table, John led her to her crib. Laying her in the crib, John covered her, pulled the side rail up, and closed the locking lid. Janice was secured in a baby crib. Reaching through the rails, Denise inserted a pacifier into Janice's mouth and handed her a teddy bear. Cooing to Janice, Denise said, "Take you napapoo, baby Janny and Auntie Dee Dee will see baby later." Denise, John, and the nurse left the room, closing the door. Janice laid there, sucking on her pacifier, thinking of how much of a baby she had become. She did not want to be a baby, she wanted to be treated like an adult, to dress like an adult, to eat like an adult, to use the bathroom like an adult. She wanted to be an adult again. Janice fell asleep with these thoughts, wishing she never treated John like a baby, punishing him like a baby. What they say about, what goes around comes around, is so true. Janice woke because someone was shaking her. Rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she saw that the nurse was standing over her, shaking her awake. The lid was opened and the side rail was down. She was holding a baby bottle full of a dark liquid. It was not the usual baby formula that they normally fed her. The nurse inserted the nipple into Janice's mouth, letting the liquid flow into her mouth. Janice wanted to gag, it was warm prune juice. She found that she could not push the bottle away, the nurse held it tight. Shaking her head back and forth did not shake the nipple loose either. She was forced to lie there and swallow the awful drink. Janice could see them slowly getting smaller in the bottle, and to her relief, the bottle was finally emptied. Her happiness was short-lived, for the nurse produced another bottle, forcing her to drink too. Again, she watched as the prune juice slowly disappeared from the bottle and finally emptied. Once again the nurse shoved another bottle into her mouth. Janice did not think she could drink all of it, but soon the third and last bottle was emptied. Gazing at her stomach, Janice could swear it was sticking out, bloated. The nurse pulled the zipper of her Dr. Denton's down and pulled off the cotton pajamas. Janice was wearing only her diapers and plastic pants. Lifting her out of her crib, the nurse had Janice crawl over to the changing table. The changing table was an exact copy of a baby's changing table, except it was made for an adult. Picking Janice up under her arms, the nurse laid her on the table. Turning her over onto her stomach, she pulled the plastic pants off, depositing them into the diaper pail. Removing the diaper pin, the nurse pulled the diaper flaps back. Taking Velcro straps, taping them across her waist, she secured Janice down. The nurse knew that Janice would object severely at this next step in her treatment. Looking over her shoulder, Janice watched what the nurse was doing. She had attached an 4-pole to the table. Janice wondered what was going on. Next, she hung a clear plastic bag with a tube running out the bottom. The bag was full and bloated. Following the tubing, it ran down and then up to the nurse's hand. The end of the tube had a nozzle to it, which the nurse was applying Vaseline to. She was going to Janice an enema. Trying to get away was fruitless. Janice was pinned down. Crying, Janice wailed, "No! I don't want an enema." They said nothing as she inserted the greased nozzle. Janice could feel the warm solution starting to flow in her. It kept coming. There seemed no stopping the flow. It was so uncomfortable. The enema solution fixing with the 3 bottles of prune juice in her stomach. The nurse stood next to Janice, patting her bottom and ignoring her crying. Janice continued crying and begging to have the enema stopped. "Please stop it. I don't need an enema. Babies don't know what they need." Nursey knows what baby Janny needs. Cooed the nurse. Finally, the enema was over. The nurse removed the nozzle and using diaparin, rubbed in the ointment. She had applied a very heavy coating of the ointment. When the nurse sprinkled the fine baby powder on Janice, Janice sneezed. The nurse smiled at that. Janice was pinned into 4 very thick cloth diapers and a pair of pink plastic pants pulled up and over her diapers. Janice was placed into a baby harness, keeping her held down to the mattress. After giving the baby woman a pacifier, the nurse pulled the side rail up, securing it. Janice laid in her crib, sucking the pacifier, trying in vain to hold the enema. She could feel the prune juice and the enema bubbling in her stomach. She knew that the enema would be erupting into her diapers very soon. She did not have to wait long. No matter how hard Janice tried, she could not stop the enviable. Squeezing her cheek muscles did not help, and shortly, the results of the prune juice and enema erupted into her diapers. Janice started to bawl, for it kept coming and coming. She thought that it would never stop. Finally, it stopped. Janice laid in her crib, crying her eyes out, banging her fists on the mattress. She felt so babyish. And she hated that feeling. As she cried, her nurse came over to the crib and looked down at the crying baby woman. "Ah," she cooed, "did baby Janny go poo-poo in her didies?" Looking up at this person, the tears fell down her cheeks and onto the mattress. Janice could not believe she did this to John all this time. Smiling, the tall nurse cooed. "Now baby Janny, nursey not gonna change baby for a while. Maybe when nurse changes baby, baby will have a nasty didi rash." Smiling, the nurse continued. "Now won't you feel like a helpless baby?" This caused Janice to cry loudly. She did not want to have a diaper rash. She did not want to be helpless, but she wanted to be changed, now. The nurse left, only to have the door open a few minutes later. It was her niece, Denise. Quietly, she walked over to the baby crib where her aunt lay. Holding her nose, Denise cooed. "Oh, baby Janny poo stinky." Tears running down her cheeks, Janice cried. "Please, Denise, can you change me? I don't care anymore if you treat me like a baby, I just want out of these horrible diapers." Smiling, Denise cooed. "Okay baby Janny, Auntie Dee will change baby." In minutes, Denise had removed the damp plastic pants and the smelly diapers. She had her clean up of the messy and using baby wipes, had Janice smelling fresh and clean again. Taking diaparin, Denise cooed. "Auntie Dee no wants baby to get a didi rash, so Auntie Dee going to put this nice cream on baby. Won't that feel good?" Janice laid on her stomach as Denise rubbed in the white ointment. Janice had to admit that it felt wonderful. Denise was rubbed with baby lotion all over her body. Denise gently rubbed the lotion over Janice's chest, arms, legs, and her back. Soon, Janice was smelling of sweet baby powder. Janice had to admit, Denise was taking good care of her. Very gently and carefully, Denise pined 6 thick cloth diapers on her aunt, followed by a pair of pink plastic pants. Taking a romper suit, she put that on Janice. A pair of white anklets completed her ensemble. Taking her aunt out of the crib, Denise had her crawl out of the room to the elevators. Going down in the elevator to the first floor, Denise led Janice to the playroom and placed her in a vacant playpen. Surrounding Janice was a load of stuffed baby toy animals and toys. Giving Janice a pacifier, Denise went over and sat down while watching her aunt. Denise made sure that her aunt was taken care of and happy. By the time dinner was ready, Denise had taken Janice out of her playpen. She had her crawl to the dining area. She was supervised by a nurse. This was as all babysitters of the baby women were. The nurse allowed Denise to care for Janice. However, the nurse would be there if Janice caused any problems. Once again, Denise sat her aunt at a round table. Every other chair around the table was an adult-size high chair. Janice was put into one of them. With the feeding tray secured, a large plastic bib was tied on her. A large baby try bowl was put on the tray. Before Denise could start feeding Janice, Janice picked the bowl up and threw it on the floor. Then she started to giggle. She thought it was funny. She did not think so after Denise slapped her hand very hard. Janice quickly pulled it back. Her bottom lip started to quiver and she started crying loudly. "You naughty baby," scolded Denise, shaking her finger at Janice. Janice sat in her chair, wailing. A waitress put another bowl of baby food mush on the tray. Denise picked up the tin baby spoon and began to feed Janice. There was creamed chicken, strained string beans, applesauce, and to Janice's horror, strained prunes. Janice ate the chicken and applesauce. However, she had a little trouble eating the string beans. They tasted yucky. Denise had to hold Janice's nose to feed her the hated prunes. Scraping the bottom of the bowl, Denise fed Janice every drop of the strained prunes. Removing the feeding tray, Denise said, "Since baby Janice was bad by throwing her bowl, Auntie Dee going to put baby to bed an hour early." Janice looked at her niece shocked. It was bad enough that she was being put to bed at 8 o'clock. However, 7 o'clock was way too early. Janice was a grown woman. She did not want to be treated this way. Janice voiced her objection. Denise grabbed Janice's ear and dragged her over to a chair. Sitting down, Denise pulled disobedient Janice over her lap. She began spanking her with a slipper. "That's it, young lady," announced Denise. "You are going to have your bath, and then put into your crib. You will learn to listen to Auntie." After spanking Janice with the slipper, Denise took her to her nursery room and into the bathroom. Running the water into the tub, Denise removed the romper suit, socks, plastic pants, and finally the diapers. Taking her hands, Denise sat Janice in the warm soapy water. Using ivory soap began washing her. Janice did not have anyone bathe her since she was a baby. Denise washed her arms, her chest, then her legs, and last her feet. Laying her on her side, Denise washed her back and her bottom. She made sure that every inch of Janice was thoroughly scrubbed. Rubbing soap on the washcloth, Denise scrubbed Janice's face. Lastly, using Johnson's baby shampoo, Denise washed Janice's hair. Taking a large fluffy towel, Denise helped Janice out of the tub and vigorously rubbed her dry. Slapping her already sore bottom, Denise had Janice crawl to her crib. Denise lifted her up and onto the mattress. Janice quickly found herself having diapering, baby lotion and baby powder put all over her diaper area. Janice thought how much of a baby she smelled like. For thick diapers and plastic pants were put on her, followed by a pair of cotton Dr. Dentons. Denise then pulled the sheet up, tucking it under her Janice's chin. Giving Janice a pacifier, she pulled the side rail up and closed the lid, locking it. "I don't want to go to bed yet," cried Janice. Putting her finger to her lips, Denise whispered, "Hush now. You were very naughty and you're going to bed early." She handed Janice a bottle filled with Nutrimigen baby formula. It tasted horrible. However, after drinking it for the past few days, at least she could tolerate it. She knew that if she did not drink the formula, Denise would force-feed it to her. She would probably give her a spanking too. Janice did not want that. Denise left the room. Janice started crying uncontrollably. As the tears rolled down her cheeks, Janice found her eyelids growing heavy. Soon she was fast asleep. The next morning, Janice woke to find Denise standing over her crib. For the rest of the week, Denise was with every waking minute. Denise fed her, dressed her, bathed her, and changed her. When Denise thought that Janice was naughty, Denise ended up spanking her. By now, Janice found it easier to cry when she was hungry or wet. Janice was now used to Denise taking care of her. Friday morning, Janice woke to find a nurse standing over her instead of Denise. The first words she wailed, "Me want Auntie Dee Dee." Smiling, the nurse cooed, No, sweetie. Nursey gonna take care of baby for a while. She handed Janice a baby bottle filled with the yucky baby formula she hated. She sucked on the bottle hungrily. When she finished the bottle, Janice was laid on her stomach. The nurse began patting her back until she let out a burp. As she was patting Janice, another nurse brought in a gurney. Lowering the rail, the nurses pulled Janice out of her crib and onto the gurney. Janice found herself strapped down. The nurse looked down at Janice and cooed. Sweetie, to help you look more like a baby, Nursey gonna take all that nasty hair off baby. You will never gonna worry about grown-up hair no more. The nurse pushed the gurney to another room. On the doorplate was electrodialysis room. Janice started shaking her head. No, she cried, please don't do this to me. The nurses ignored her as they started the treatment. Giving her a sedative, the nurses did the treatment as Janice fell into the blackness of sleep. When she woke up an hour and a half later, her body tingled. The treatment was over and the nurse was pushing her into another room. Sitting the gurney into a sitting position, the nurse took scissors and started trimming her hair. Locks of blonde hair fell on the floor. Even though her hair was short, the nurse trimmed it even shorter. By the time the nurse finished, Janice's hair had been curled, giving it a Shirley Temple baby look. For a finishing touch, the nurse pulled the center of Janice's hair up and clipped it with a plastic baby bow. The nurses cooed, saying how sweet Janice looked. Janice looked in the mirror and started to cry. Dressed only in diapers and plastic pants and her hair curled, she no longer looked like a mature woman she did a little while ago. Now she looked like an overgrown baby. The nurses took Janice back to her nursery room where they laid her in her crib. The experience overcame her and she fell into a deep sleep. Janice slept all day and did not wake until after 5. Because of her babying treatment, Janice was hungry. She let out a loud cry. She continued crying until a nurse appeared with a bottle and a bowl of baby foods. When Janice was finished with her bottle and the baby foods, the nurse changed her and put her Dr. Denton's on. Janice was soon fast asleep, sucking her thumb while she slept. Janice woke to someone stroking her hair. Opening her eyes, Janice saw Denise standing there smiling. John stood behind his niece. Time to go bye-byes, sweetie, cooed Denise. Auntie Dee Dee going to dress baby and take her home. Denise changed Janice's diaper, while Janice nursed on a bottle of Nutrimigen baby formula. Denise dressed Janice in a very short baby dress. Pink, with white puffed sleeves and a white Peter Pan collar. Pink cotton panties with white ruffles covered the seat of the panties. A white pinafore covered the front of the baby dress. White anklets and black patent Marianne's finished her outfit. Janice in all her bay finery was ready to leave the baby hospital. Leaving the hospital, John sat his infantile wife in the back seat while Denise handed her a rattle to play with. Then they were off. Denise looked back at Janice in the back seat. Denise was sure that baby Janice was not going to enjoy being babied while she was around. She had the whole summer to take care of baby Janice. Denise sat baby Janice in the adult-size baby stroller and followed the nurse outside. The nurses and the administrators came over to say their goodbyes to Janice. She was patted, tickled under her chin, her cheek squeezed or her forehead was kissed. John stood beside the stroller as they walked towards his car. It was a 2002 Cadillac Seville. His other car was a 1965 Corvette. John may drive it now, but when they purchased it, Janice insisted that it be put in her name only. Since she was in charge of everything, including his life, she got her way. Before John took Janice to the hospital, Janice drove 99% of the time. He was not allowed to drive without her permission. Denise stopped at the car. Opening up the back seat, Denise unstrapped the restraints on the stroller. Lifting her out of the baby stroller, Denise helped her aunt into the back seat. The curls waved in front of Janice's face, making Janice giggle. Denise strapped Janice in, then gave her a binky and a stuffed Elmo. Then they were off. Janice sat in the back, sucking on her pacifier and hugging the stuffed animal, trying to be invisible. People who passed her on the highway gave her looks. When Janice tried to remove the pacifier from her mouth, Denise slapped her hand away. Shaking her finger in her infantile charge's face, Denise said in a very authoritative voice, "Listen to me, young lady. I'm in charge of you now. You'll do as I say or you'll be punished." Smiling, Denise continued, "Do you remember when I was younger, and you would babysit me for the entire summer, 'cause Mom and Dad were working night and day?" Janice started to quake. Denise said, "And you would punish me, making me go to bed at 5 at night. Remember how you said you wanted to make sure that I didn't wet the bed and put me in diapers?" As she was speaking, Janice could see that Denise was getting angrier and angrier. "How you embarrassed me in front of all your friends, by pulling down my pajama bottoms to see if I was properly diapered." Shoving the pacifier back into Janice's mouth, Denise said, "That's nothing for what I have in mind for you. You misbehave one little bit and you'll be sorry that you were ever born." "Me and Big Del," cried Janice. "You no treat me this way. MWM no BAB." Janice did not notice that she was speaking more like a baby than a grown woman. That was part of the treatment, hypnotical learning. The same was done with her walking, she'd be walking more like a baby in that department too. Though she won't know or understand why. John just sat, driving and listening to the one-side conversation. Hell have his turn. Pulling up to his house, John parked the car in the street. Denise got out of the car and opening the rear door, grabbed both of Janice's wrists. When Janice hesitated on coming out, her niece knocked gently, yanked her out and onto the sidewalk. Janice stood on the sidewalk, pigeon-toed. She was dressed in a very short pink baby dress, with white puffed sleeves and a white Peter Pan collar. A white pinafore covered the front of the baby dress. She had on white anklets and black patent Mary-Janes. Pink cotton panties with white ruffles covered the seat of the panties. A large pink baby bow was centered in her head amongst a mass of Shirley Temple curls. Denise retrieved the pacifier and her stuffed Elmo from the back seat and shoved them at her. Janice turned to walk to the house, or actually run towards it, but she could not. As she started to move, Janice discovered that she was wobbling. She made it across the cement sidewalk to the front lawn only to stumble and fall on her diapered bottom. She looked up at her husband and niece with a look of incomprehension on her face. Janice could not understand why she could not walk. Like most babies that fall, Janice's bottom lip began to quiver, then she started to cry softly, growing louder in volume. Smiling, John cooed, taking her wrist in both his strong hands and helping her up on her feet. "You're a baby and babies have trouble walking. Especially at your age." Denise took one wrist, while John held on to the other. Together, they walked slowly up the lawn to the front door. They had to, for Janice could only take baby steps. Unhurriedly, the small group reached the front porch. Taking out his keys, John unlocked the door. Throwing open the wooden door, Denise escorted her baby in. Once in the foyer, she let go and Janice fell once more on her diapered bottom. "Baby must be hungry," stated John. Turning to Denise, he said, "Why don't you give the baby her bottle?" Gleaming, Denise replied, "Sure, Uncle John. I'll give the baby her bottle." Swatting Janice's diapered bottom, Denise had her crawl to the kitchen where she got a bottle of Nutrimigen baby formula out of the refrigerator. Before giving the bottle to Janice, Denise obtained another bottle from the cabinet. Taking a large serving spoon, she poured the liquid onto the spoon. "No little brat that I take of is going to get sick while I in charge," Denise said as she knelt next to Janice. Holding Janice's nose, Janice quickly opened her mouth, which Denise shoved the spoon into. "That should do it." A large spoonful of castor oil. Janice swallowed the horrible-tasting liquid and almost threw up. Her niece handed her the nipple bottle, which she stuck into her mouth and began to suck on. Even the sour milk tasted of the Nutrimigen baby formula tasted better than the castor oil. Janice laid on her back, holding the baby bottle with both hands, sucking noisily on the bottle. When she finished her bottle, Denise knelt next to Janice and stuck her finger into the diapers. "Wet," she announced. "Can't you stay dry? You are a grown woman, aren't you?" Janice shook her head. "Yeth, me am big giwl, Auntie Dee Dee." As she stuck her thumb into her mouth. "Well, sweetie," Denise said coldly. "Auntie Dee Dee is not going to change your wet diapies till tonight." Janice looked up at Denise in shock. She wanted to be changed now. "Maybe then you'll have a nasty diaper rash," she cooed. "Then you see that you are only a baby." Slapping her damp diapered bottom, Denise led her to the front and outside. When Janice started fussing about going out front, Denise pulled her over her knee and using a wooden paddle, spanked her hard. Janice quickly found herself crying with her arms waving around and kicking her legs. Denise knew how to spank. "We're going for a ride around the block," Denise announced. John had taken the stroller out of the trunk and was pushing it up the front yard. Before Janice knew it, she was strapped into the stroller with Denise pushing her down the block. Janice was scared. She still had the memories and the intelligence of an adult, but she also had the response of a baby. Janice sat in the stroller with tears streaming down her cheeks as she balled her fisted hands into her face. Continuing her babyish responses, she found herself kicking her feet on the foot rail of the stroller. Denise pushed the stroller around the block, to her amusement, and to Janice's horror. The neighborhood wives emerged from their homes to make sure of what they saw. They all knew Janice and they all agreed, she was the neighborhood gossip. Janice was a real pain in everyone's backsides. At any type of community meeting, everyone had to do as she said. The women came from both sides of the street and quickly surrounded the stroller. One woman announced that she had called a few others and told them what she saw and they were coming. Janice felt so humiliated, but Denise was grinning from ear to ear. The women began talking to Janice and the other women. "Doesn't she look adorable?" Another woman felt her arm, saying, "Her skin is so smooth. And no body hair, just like a baby's. Don't you love her little baby dress? I love her hair, a mass of baby curls. Aren't her Marianne's cute?" Denise beamed with pride like the mother of a newborn baby. "I treat her just like a little baby. Me am no bab. Me am big giwl," cried Janice. The women laughed. They were enjoying seeing the gossip of the neighborhood being treated this way. "Since she acts like a baby, we must treat her like one." "Like checking her diapers," said Denise. Janice started shaking her head. "No." Denise pushed her forward, lifted up her baby dress skirt, and pulled on her plastic diapers. Smiling, Denise cooed. "Ah, da poor widdle baby went pee-pee in hers didies." The women laughed and Janice turned bright red. Then one of the women began to chant. "Janice wet her diapers. Janice wet her diapers," then another chimed in. "Janice wet her diapers." Then another and then another until all were chanting. "Janice wet her diapers." Janice started crying. "Stop it. Stop it," she was so embarrassed. Denise stood there laughing so hard at Janice's predicament, that she was crying. "Well," she said, "I have to get the big baby home so I give her a diaper change." Looking around at the woman she continued. "Does anyone want to come over and watch?" Several of the women quickly said yes through their giggles. They were really enjoying this. They walked slowly back to John and Janice's house. Stopping at the porch, Denise unstrapped Janice and got her out of the stroller. Janice found herself wobbling and stumbling and she finally fell back onto her diaper bottom. One of the women cried out, "Ah, isn't she adorable?" The rest of the women quickly agreed. Janice let out a loud "Wah." The women followed Janice as she crawled to her new nursery room. "This looks perfect for Jan, it suits her. A baby's nursery room for such a big baby." Denise sat her infantile aunt up onto the changing table and strapped her down. The women gathered around watching as Denise prepared for the diaper changing. Janice laid on the table banging her fists and kicking her feet. Denise worked quickly, removing all of Janice's baby clothes, until she was lying on the table dressed only in her wet diapers. Removing the diaper pins, Denise stripped Janice of the diapers. Janice was bawling her eyes out until one of the women said, "What a little brat," and stuck a baby's pacifier in her mouth. Bending over her aunt, Denise said, "Since you were such a bad baby, Janny, Auntie Dee Dee is putting you to bed now. You can lay there thinking what a naughty baby you were." Turning Janice onto her stomach, she was diapered and put into a pair of yellow Dr. Dentons, complete with feet. Removing the Velcro strap, Denise grabbed Janice's ear and dragged her over to the large baby crib. Laying her in it, Denise took a serving spoon and filled it with castor oil. Pinching Janice's nose until she opened up, she shoved the spoonful of oil into her mouth. This caused Janice to gag. Denise pulled the side rail up and closed the lid, locking. "You'll stay in your crib until I decide to get you out," said Denise. Denise turned on the baby monitor, closed the shades and curtain. The only light emitted from the Winnie the Pooh night light. Shooing out the women, Denise closed the door, leaving Janice completely alone. Janice lay in her crib sobbing. She wished that she was not so nasty to Denise when she was younger, and that she wished that she was not known as the neighborhood bitch. Maybe then, one of the women would have come to her rescue. Janice lay in her oversized crib, sobbing. She could feel the enema and the castor oil starting to work on her system. Her stomach was rumbling. As she lay there, the door opened, and in walked Denise. Smiling, she cooed, "Baby Janny, Daddy went bye-byes and left you in my care." This was her chance. Janice thought. She could easily overpower Denise, get dressed in her regular clothes, and then when John gets home, punish him. Denise held a baby bottle of that yucky, warm formula. Opening the lid and lowering the side rail, Denise was about to shove the nipple into Janice's mouth. But before she could, Janice quickly grabbed Denise's wrist, taking the bottle away. Denise was completely taken by surprise. Janice was able to roll off the crib's mattress and throw Denise down into the crib. "This is where you belong, not me," yelled Janice. That's how far Janice got. She had forgotten that she had been hypnotically trained for the past few weeks, that she could only behave like a toddler. Janice could only walk like a toddler, as well as talk. She may think, "I am not a baby. I'm a grown woman." But it would come out as, "Me no baby. Me big girl." She would think that this was perfectly normal for her. The mentality was that of a toddler too. Looking at the bottle of baby powder, she knew what it was, but was unable to read the label. She was unable to read. If she was given a pencil, she was unable to write. That is why she was unable to get out of her crib. She could not understand the simple mechanics of a latch. It was also the reason she could not change her own diapers. She did not know how to unclasp the diaper pins. Janice quickly found that her leg could not stay stable, and she found herself falling onto the carpet. She looked up to see Denise smiling. Fear struck, and she was unable to stop her infantile reaction. Wah! Turning on all fours, she tried in vain to crawl to the door to escape the punishment she knew that Denise would give. She never made it, for Denise leaped off the mattress and quickly reached Janice. Garbing her ear, Denise dragged Janice back to the crib. No sooner was she thrown back into the crib, the enema erupted into her diapers. Picking up the bottle, Denise shoved it into Janice's mouth and ordered, "Drink, you naughty baby." Tears racing down her cheeks, Janice did as her niece ordered. She felt so uncomfortable sitting in her messy diapers. Janice knew her only course of action: to cry. Wah! Wah! She cried and cried. She could not stop. Denise pulled up the side rail and closed the lid. Latching it. Pointing her finger at Janice, Denise ordered, "You are staying in your crib like a naughty baby. When I decide that you have been crib-bound long enough, you and I are going to all of the neighbors and you are going to give an apology to all of them. You are going to tell them that you were a very naughty baby. And she suddenly increased the tone in her voice, you will call them Auntie. Do you hear me, baby Janny? Yeth, Auntie Dee Dee. Sniffed Janice, me be good baby. Me no be bad no more. Smiling, Denise said. Well see. Now you think of what a bad baby you've been. I'll be back. She left the room, closing the door. Janice laid back down on the mattress. She could feel the effects of the enema as well as the smell. She could hardly wait until Denise returned to change her. As she laid there, she tried to think of how she could change herself and clean herself up. She did not know how. Janice knew she used to be able to dress and wash herself too. But now she could not remember how. She laid in her crib for 2 hours before Denise returned. She was so happy to see her niece. Going over to Janice's crib, Denise unlatched the lid and lowered the side rail. Not saying a word, she grabbed Janice's wrist and took her over to the changing table. Picking her up under her arms, Denise laid Janice on the table, securing her down with the Velcro strap. Working quickly and methodically, Denise removed the messy diapers and cleaned Janice up. In about 5 minutes, Janice smelled of sweet baby powder again, just as a baby should. Janice lay on the table naked as Denise retrieved the baby items she needed. Denise already put diaperin and baby potion all over Janice, as well as baby powder. Laying 4 thick diapers under her bottom, Denise spread her Janice legs apart, pulling the cloth up, pinning them. A pair of pink plastic pants were pulled up her legs and over the bulky diapers. A t-shirt with a little pink bow on the chest was next. Denise took an adult-size baby romper suit and put that on her aunt. Taking a brush, Denise fluffed up the curls and replaced the plastic baby bow in her hair. Helping her walk, Denise took Janice to the front porch where she strapped her aunt into the baby seat. She locked the tray in place, securing Janice. Janice started banging her bare feet on the footrest, crying. Me no want to go. Denise looked at her aunt saying. I told you that you were going to apology to everyone. Now you have 2 choices, you can do it now or be crib bound again and do it later. Either way, you will do it. Swallowing, Janice looked up at her niece and said in a whispered voice. Me do it, Auntie. Me be good for you. Denise smiled at Janice's transformation. She was really enjoying babying her. Denise pushed the baby stroller to the first house, Marie Phillips. Denise knocked and her daughter, Robin, answered. At first her daughter was surprised and then she started laughing. Janice felt so foolish that she started to cry. Denise asked if her mother was home. A few minutes later, Marie came to the door. Through her tears and sniffling, Janice said in a whispered voice. Me sawi why. Me was bad giwl. Folding her arms in front of the once adult women, Marie replied. You know I always hated that name, but you insisted on calling me that. Call me by my right name or I'll make sure that Denise spanks you right here. Swallowing, Janice said. No. Me sawi moi. What did I tell you to call them, ordered Denise. Sniffling, Janice cried out. Me sawi Auntie moi. Denise said in a commanding voice. I think that you should say you are sorry to Robin also. And she is older than you so you know what to call her. Robin stood in front of the stroller. Janice looked at Robin and said. Me sawi Auntie Wobing for being mean to you. Me woi sawi. Then they were off to the next house. Denise was beaming while Janice was cringing and sobbing and apologizing to her neighbors. Finally, they arrived at the last house. It was the home that Janice was dreading, the home of her rival, Lauren Green. In her stroller, as they were walking up the walkway, Janice looked up at Denise and cried. Please, Auntie D. No make me do this. Me no wanta. But it was too late, the front door opened, and there stood Lauren, smiling. Arms folded, Denise ordered her aunt to apologize. Tears starting to roll down her cheeks, Janice said. Misawi, Lauren. What did you call me? Inquired Lauren. This was killing her as she replied. Misawi, our Auntie Lauren. That is better, said Lauren, touching Janice's curly hair. Ah, she looks just like an overgrown Shirley Temple. Now let's see how good baby Janny walks. Janice started saying. You know help. Me walk goodly. Me big giwl. Yes you are, exclaimed Lauren like one would to a baby. Taking both her hands in her own, Lauren pulled the overgrown baby out of the stroller and pulled her towards herself. Like a baby, Janice moved slowly and was waddling. But she did not fall, thanks to Lauren holding onto her hands. Janice was so embarrassed to be treated like a baby by her rival. Lauren let Janice fall back gently, Lauren let her sit. Janice sat with a splat. A cruel smile appeared on Lauren's face, she knew that sound. Janice had wet diapers, very wet diapers. I think your baby needs a diaper change. If you want, you can change her here. Denise was beaming. She knew Janice was being humiliated. That's great. I have all her changing needs here in my bag, said Denise as she lifted the large diaper bag. Janice started crying. No, she did not to be diapered changed especially in form of Lauren. Denise ignored Janice's pleas and sitting her up, removed her romper suit. Next, she pulled off the t-shirt. Laying her down on the diaper pad, Denise pulled the plastic pants down her legs and unpinned the diapers. With a yank, she pulled the cloth diapers off and put them into a plastic bag along with the damp plastic pants. Janice tried to cover herself with her hands. She turned red from embarrassment, being in front of Lauren. Lauren watched as Denise rubbed diaperin and baby lotion into Janice, then turned her onto her stomach and did the same to her behind. This was followed by a heavy coating of baby powder. Using 4 thick cloth diapers, she was amazed at how docile Janice was as she was pinned into them with the plastic pants covering them. Removing from the diaper bag, Denise withdrew a nipple baby bottle of formula and handed it to Lauren. Lauren took Janice to the sofa and sat her on her lap. Sitting the baby woman close to her, Lauren stuck the bottle into Janice's mouth. What else could Denise do to me? Thought Janice. This was the worst thing that could happen to me. Being bottle-fed by that bitch, Lauren. Lauren held the bottle on an angle, making the formula flow faster. Janice found herself sucking and swallowing the horrible-tasting baby formula quickly. Twin trail of formula dribbled from the corners of her mouth, which Lauren motherly wiped away. Janice was bloated by the time Lauren finished feeding her. Taking a cloth diaper and laying on her shoulder, Lauren laid Janice's head over her shoulder holding it down with a hand. With her other hand, she began patting Janice's back hard. Janice knew the routine all too well. It was done to her at the hotel and Denise did it to her as well. She was being burped. She was in no position to complain. She would let the patting do its thing to her body, the reaction would be a burp. Occasionally, the burp would generate bubbles, just like a baby does. Janice was starting to respond like a baby if she wanted to or not. After a few minutes of patting her back, Janice opened her mouth and let out a loud burp. Not only did she burp, but spit up a little of the formula too. Then it was time to go. Lauren helped Denise strap Janice into the stroller and secured the tray. Tickling Janice under her chin, Lauren cooed. You're such a cute whittle baby. Now you come back and see Auntie Lauren real soon, okay? Denise promised that they would and they started back home. It's time for dinner. And right afterward, you being out to bed. Denise in an authoritative voice. You were very naughty today and must be punished. Janice's face scrunched up ready to cry. Why? Me say me sorry. Me no want to go sleep. That will make sure you behave, stated Denise. They got home and John was just putting dinner on the table. They ate in the dining room. Seated between John and Denise was the high chair which John sat his infantile wife into. After tying a large plastic bib on her, John started feeding her with a tiny baby spoon. Smiling, John cooed to Janice, laughing. "This is a switch, me feeding you baby food instead of the other way around." Janice gazed down at what she was eating. She recognized all of the baby food John was feeding her. There was a large amount of strained chicken, strained string beans, mashed potatoes, and a large heaping of strained prunes. Plus there were 2 large baby bottles of Similac baby formula. John would shove a heaping amount of chicken on the spoon into Janice's mouth, followed by a heaping spoonful of strained string beans, followed by the nipple of a bottle. When he tried to feed her the prunes, Janice would not open her mouth. He and Denise tried. "Here comes the choo-choo." Or, "Here comes the plane." But Janice would not open her mouth. Finally, John tried his last resort, he pinched her nose. When she opened her mouth to breathe, he shoved the spoonful of prunes in, quickly shutting her mouth shut and holding it. John tilted her head up, forcing the prunes to be swallowed. Janice gagged on it. Pointing his finger in her face, he said in a very commanding voice, "If you don't want that to happen again, you will open your mouth when Daddy feeds you." Lowering her head, Janice began to sob. She did not want to eat the nasty-tasting prunes, but she did not want to go through that ordeal again. Janice decided that she would do as John asked or actually commanded. Janice slowly ate all of the strained prunes, much to her horror. She practically gagged on each spoonful that John fed her. She would rather eat what John and Denise were eating, but she reached for a chicken leg. Denise slapped her hand away. "Babies like you are too young to eat grown-up food. That's why Daddy's feeding you strained baby food." She laughed. Janice hated being treated this way. It was so humiliating. When dinner was done, John and Denise cleared the table and cleaned up the dishes while Janice sat in her high chair watching. John gave her a baby's rattle to play with. When everything was done, John removed the metal feeding tray. Lifting her under the arms, John lifted her off the high chair's seat and sat her on the floor. Denise picked up her hands, lifting her to her feet. Janice could not understand why she had trouble walking. She did not realize that she, while at the baby hospital, had been programmed to respond like a toddler. Throughout her stay, as she slept, she had been sleeping, learning to be a baby once again, forgetting adult things to do such as walking and talking. Even reading and writing now does not enter her thoughts now. Holding Janice, Denise led her to a chair, sitting down and helping Janice sit on her lap. John looked at the couple. He smiled. It was quite a sight seeing a grown woman, dressed as babysitting on the lap of a girl a foot smaller. Denise held onto her aunt tight. Standing in front of his infantile wife, John said, "Janice, Dee, and I have been talking. What you need is not an aunt, but a mommy." Smiling, he continued, "So from now on, Dee is no longer your auntie, she's going to be your mommy." Janice was horrified. Denise was going to be her mommy. A person of younger years mothering a woman in her 30s. This was so humiliating, the worst yet. "No," cried Janice, "no mama. Me no want mama, Dada." She had been conditioned to call John Dada. Squeezing Janice's cheeks hard, Denise cooed, "That's right, little baby. From now on, I'm your mommy." Sitting Janice on the floor. "Daddy's going to take baby to the nursery and put her in her crib." Swatting her diaper bottom, Denise sent her on her way. Janice looked at the kitchen clock, it was only 5:47. Janice crawled, for she was too unstable to walk, following John to her nursery room. Once there, John lowered the side rail, lifted her up under the arms and laid her in her crib. Looking at her husband, Janice cried, "Me no want to go bed, Dada. To iwi. It's not too early, Janice. Remember how you used to put me to bed at 10 in the morning?" Questioned John. "This is for being a naughty baby. Maybe tomorrow you'll be better behaved." Sitting her up, he removed her t-shirt. Grabbing the waistband of the plastic pants, John felt her diapers. "You're wet," he said. "But I think I won't change you until maybe your 2 o'clock feeding." Janice started to wail. "Wow, me want to be changed the ABDL." John ignored her and laid out her cotton Dr. Denton's. Slowly and carefully, he inserted her feet into the footy section, pulling the pajamas up her legs, over her diapers. Then he inserted her arms into the sleeves, pulling them up her arms. Finally, he pulled the zip up from the bottom all the way up to her neck. Now if Janice thought she could simply unzip the pajamas, she was wrong. Attached to the sleeves were mittens, thick so that she was unable to grab anything. She was helpless. Turning her onto her stomach, John strapped her down using a Velcro strap. She was unable to turn over. Taking the large serving spoon, he poured out a large amount of castor oil, pinching Janice's nose, shoved it into her mouth. "I've decided that with every meal, so baby-o gets a tummy ache, Janny gonna get a spoonful of castor oil." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She did not want castor oil, she hated it. Sniffling, she thought to herself she never cried so much in one day as she had today. As a matter of fact, she never cried this much ever. She was becoming such a crybaby. John pulled up the side rail and secured the lid. Janice was now encased in her infantile prison. Turning on the baby monitor and the nightlight, he closed the door as he left Janice alone. Janice laid in her crib sniffling. For some strange reason, she wanted very much to suck her thumb, but because of the mittens, she was unable to. But relief was there. By her head was a pacifier. "My binky," she thought happily as she grabbed it with her mitten hands. She shoved the nipple into her mouth and sucked blissfully on it. Thinking, Janice thought, "I don't want Denise to be my mother, pretend or otherwise." Even though Janice spoke like a baby and did not realize it, her thoughts still were arranged in an adult pattern. "Well, I will worry about it tomorrow. I'm tired and need some sleep," Janice thought to herself. In a little while, Janice was sound asleep, sucking contentedly on her pacifier.